Focus on the ATL.
Hello and welcome back to Focus Atlanta. Again, I'm your host, Keisha Lancelin. Thanks so much for continuing to watch. In this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about your funds and your finances. I am here with our guest from Chappell, Mayfield Associates. I'm here with Mr. Kaz Chappell and Charles Mayfield. Thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
And thanks so much for your blog information. You know, I know you guys already know that every now and again I cheat and steal some of them for our public service announcements on our web because it's just such great information.
Our pleasure.
Tell me a little bit about the firm.
Charles and I have been in our business for over a decade, and we started Chappell Mayfield Associates in 2003 so that we could really focus on financial and retirement planning for our clients. We work with individuals, families, and small businesses here in Metro Atlanta.
Wow. And right now, I would imagine, you know, trying to plan for retirement is a big deal because we're all wondering if there's even going to be Social Security. You know,
everybody's concerned.
Panicking a little bit.
Yep.
You know, but you guys have some tips for us to kind of help us through this process?
We do.
Okay.
There are 5 mistakes that we commonly see with our clients, and the first one that we see is the idea that you're going to be able to buy bonds and live off the interest. And it doesn't take looking very hard to see that interest rates are very, very low right now.
Right.
And you would have to have a very sizable nest egg to be able to generate enough interest to provide for your retirement. For that reason, we have to educate our clients that you're always going to have at least a substantial portion of your retirement nest egg invested in equities and stocks and bonds.
Okay. And that's why there's, you know, we need somebody like the Atlanta Planning Guys because, you know, we don't always understand the ins and outs of that stuff.
Well, number 4 on our list is closely related to what Cass brought up, but as we age, we tend to want to put more money, a greater share of our nest egg toward bonds or towards what we call fixed income. And there's a common rule in our industry called the rule of 120. So I take 120 and subtract my age, and that's how much I should put toward bonds or fixed income. So a 70-year-old would have 50% exposure to bonds and the other 50% commonly to the market. And the 2 flaws with this are, one is consumers tend to associate safety with bonds, and one doesn't have to look too terribly far back in the past to see that even the bond market is subjected to sharp declines in valuations as interest rates fluctuate. The other component of this that's somewhat flawed is, Cass alluded to this a little bit, is we're living longer. You know, it's not entirely uncommon to see a 65-year-old today live well into their 90s. So we have to make that money last longer. It has to keep pace and grow. So what we've seen is a consistent allocation toward bonds of between 25 and 40% of your total portfolio, regardless of your age, and you will stay that way. You'll stay invested that way throughout retirement.
Okay, well, let's move on to our third misconception.
The third misconception is taking recent strong performance to mean that now I can increase how much I'm taking from my nest egg. The last couple of years have been terrible in the stock market, and we're going through a financial crisis right now, but in the 90s when the stock market was going almost straight up, we saw just an explosion of increase in consumer discretionary spending because people thought the good times were never going to end.
Right.
The internet bubble burst, and it reminded us that the stock market can also go down.
Right.
From 2003 to 2007, we saw a little bit of the same thing. There was a very strong period of market performance, but then as the last couple of years have reminded us, the stock market can go both ways. So what we need to help people understand is that the good years serve to help buffer against the bad years, which are going to come.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's talk about that second misconception.
Second misconception is pretty simple. It's just simply that you won't spend as much when you retire. I hear this a lot. You know, Charles, I'm just not going to spend as much when I'm done working, and that's really not the case. There are a lot of studies that would contradict that. Certainly in the early years. So yeah.
All right.
We're going to spend more.
Go ahead and give us that number 1 misconception before we go.
Underestimating how much you need. A lot of people have no idea how much money how much do you need to have saved up. And what we usually try to help people do is to determine what your baseline income is going to be. Hopefully you're going to have Social Security.
Right.
If you're fortunate enough to work for an employer that provides a pension, you may have that too.
Okay.
And so then you've got to determine how much do I need to come up with on my own. And for people, that's going to be their nest egg. There have been many different research studies around what is the safe withdrawal that you can take out of that and have your portfolio last for a long period of time.
Okay.
And the consensus is somewhere around 5%. Now this serves as a big wake-up call to a lot of people, because if you've gone through that exercise of determining what your baseline income is going to be, and now you determine I need to come up with $20,000 on my own each year, that's going to take nearly $400,000 in terms of a nest egg. So for a lot of people, that's sticker shock. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that you can never start saving too early, and you can never save enough.
Excellent. Well, go ahead and close out with your website, because they can check out these types of tips and how to stay away from certain misconceptions on
It's
website.
AtlantaPlanningGuys.com.
AtlantaPlanningGuys.com. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to meet you guys face to face.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So I've been reading the blogs. You guys should probably start reading the blogs too, and learn a little bit more and get a little more savvy, so that actually, when you go into their office, you could have a little, knowledge behind your belt. So go ahead and take the opportunity to do it now. And stay tuned for more Focus Atlanta. We'll be right back.
Focus on the ATL.